All right, so now that we're familiar with the basic prompt engineering cycle, let's take a look at how you can set up a good testing ground for testing your prompts in ChatGPT. Now, what I've tried to do here, there are obviously much more complex setups that you can have when you're trying to, when you're trying to engineer prompts. But for now, just to make sure we start off on a good foot, I'd like to just use the simplest possible setup, which, as you can see, involves ChatGPT and a spreadsheet, right? It really doesn't need to be any more complicated than this, and really the spreadsheet is technically optional if you really hate using spreadsheets or something like that. But I usually recommend you use it just because this gives you a nice history of all of the prompts that you've used. Now, could you use something like, could you type this all into a file and use source control like GitHub to do the same thing? Absolutely, that would be great, and that would even give you a much more organized history, much more organized and robust history. But just because many more people, I would say, are probably familiar with using spreadsheets, that's what we're going to do here. So I have open here just a simple Google Sheet. You could use Excel if you wanted to as well, or really any other spreadsheet provider. But what we're going to do here is I'm just going to create a very simple structure for this spreadsheet. What we're going to do is we're going to create a prompt column. All right, so this is just going to hold the prompts that we enter as we go along. And then next to this, we're going to have a score column. Oops, and actually here, I wanted to put the prompt up at the top there. There we go. And finally, we're going to have a notes column. Now, as you go along, you can definitely add more columns, right? If you find a reason to do so. But these are really the key things here. Now, what you're going to do once you've set up these columns, and really I've just done that by adding the column names to the very top of the sheet, what you're going to do is you're going to start off here by coming up with your initial prompt. However, you may notice that from the previous video, I'm skipping over the first step a little bit. And here, let me actually zoom in a little bit so that you can see this better. There we go, cool. So let's talk about our objective. What is it that we're trying to do? Well, as an example, I'm going to use recipes here. And let's say you could obviously come up with a different situation here. Your life situation is probably different than mine. But let's say that what you want to do is you want to decide, or you want to use ChatGPT to come up with a meal plan for tomorrow, right? Let's say you want to come up with breakfast, lunch, and dinner recipes for that tomorrow. So we're obviously going to add in some more criteria after this, but just to get started here, let's define our objective as this. All right, so I'm going to say objective and just write it next to this here, or maybe I'll write it below, just so that we can kind of organize things. And you can always sort of modify the organizational or the organization of your spreadsheet as you go along. You'll find different things that you like or don't like. Really, the overall layout isn't nearly as important as it is to just have a structured place to put all of your findings and progress. So we're going to start off here just by having our objective be something like create a meal plan for breakfast, lunch, and dinner tomorrow. Something like that, all right? Now, you'll notice, you may notice from the cycle, the prompt engineering cycle that we discussed previously, that the objective has a good chance of changing as well. There are really two ways to do this, two ways to handle that fact. One would be to have a separate column for your objective here, and that would allow you to sort of track your objective as it changes and eventually get better at crafting, at defining your objectives more effectively. Or you can just say something like initial objective, just to show your starting point there. Whichever one you want to do is just fine. And maybe you even want to treat this a little bit differently. Like maybe you want to come up with a maybe you want to write a paragraph about what your objective is in really sort of verbose language, and then try and whittle that down into a prompt. So maybe you could even say something like, tomorrow is a busy day for me, so I would like to have my meals planned out ahead of time so that I can buy the ingredients on my way home today. You don't have to get like this detailed with it in your prompts, obviously. You probably wouldn't want to enter this into ChatGPT just because it's irrelevant information, right? Maybe certain parts of this can be relevant, like the fact that you're in a hurry or you're going to have a busy day tomorrow, so it's going to maybe help you come up with meals that are easy to make. But that's something you can add into the prompt in a much more concise way, right? You don't, just because you're working out your ideas in this initial objective does not mean that this has to be the final prompt that you enter in. So let's just enter in some other things here. We'll say maybe my dietary restrictions include, and I'm just going to kind of make these up here. I don't really have a whole lot of dietary restrictions myself, but maybe we'll say like gluten-free, vegan, and doesn't like asparagus, we'll say. All right, just to kind of make up some dietary restrictions there. And let's say meals should be for two, me and my wife, will say. All right. Again, this is the point here is not to come up with a specific situation for you. The point here is to kind of walk through the process of identifying what your actual needs are. Now, I'm also using a very personal example. If this was something more like for a business, right, trying to increase sales or improve customer satisfaction, things like that, this would be a much more, formal paragraph that you're writing about a very different topic than just coming up with meal plans. So this really, the process here is to work on identifying your needs effectively, which is a very good exercise here. And really, this just serves as kind of a starting point here for all of your prompts. So that's as detailed as I'm going to get. You could obviously probably think of many other details that you might want to add in there. But here, let me actually wrap this. We'll just do format, wrapping, wrap, so that puts it all in one place. So let's start off with some prompts, right? We'll start off with a very basic prompt. And that prompt is going to be something like, give me ideas for breakfast, lunch, and dinner tomorrow. And we'll say something like, give me easy meal ideas, something like that, right? So this is it's a pretty generic prompt. So that's kind of a good starting point. As you get more and more experienced with prompt engineering, you'll definitely be able to come up with better prompts on the spot. But a lot of people, when they're getting started, really can suffer from a little bit of stage fright when they're writing their first prompt, or when they're trying to pick somewhere to start. So really, it's just important that you start with something, and you can always change it later on incrementally. All right, so I'm going to start off here, and basically the next step is to take that initial prompt that you've added and go over to ChatGPT, and in a new conversation, that's an important note there, because if you enter this into an existing conversation, it's going to already have some existing context from that conversation, which might warp it a little bit. It might warp the results that you get. So you're going to want an empty conversation here, and I'm going to paste this prompt into ChatGPT, and I'm using 3.5. GPT-4 is currently only available if you're a subscriber. It does give you very, very good results. I would say significantly better than 3.5 for a wide range of situations, but still, just to make sure that everyone is available to watch this and follow along, we're just going to use GPT 3.5. So let's hit enter here, and it's going to generate a response for us. Okay, perfect. There we go. Awesome. And there we go. It's we see that it generates something here, and well, so far it's given us a pretty good, it's given us some pretty good output. But we might notice a few things about this output. So right now you can just go through yourself if you want to, and maybe identify a few things that could be better about this output. And obviously you're going to want to use your own situation, because that's really the only way that you're going to be 100% sure that your judgment is the best one. But in my, just from looking at this here, now one thing that I would notice here, and this is because of our initial objective here, you'll notice that even though what I really probably wanted was recipes, all it's given me is just a meal idea with a list of the ingredients, right? So, in other words, this is pretty helpful for just getting general ideas, which is all that we asked for if we look back at our prompt. But in reality, there's not a whole lot of helpful information that we can use to help ourselves make a decision about what to eat, right? In other words, this gives us some ideas, but it doesn't really get us any closer to our goal. So this is where we'll now start to walk through that prompt engineering process, the prompt engineering cycle, and slowly refine our prompts until we get what we want. So anyway, that is what we're going to take a look at next.